In this session, we'll look at something that is really essential at the very core to miracles and its concept of a healed mind, which leads to a peaceful mind. And it's the idea of correcting perception. So we all are perceiving already, but incorrectly, mistaken perception is the ego's default. And so the Holy Spirit works with us to take that mistaken perception and transcribe it or reinterpret it to a corrected perception, and thus our session for today. Hello and welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader today is Atisha B.
I said before that the Holy Spirit is the answer. He is the answer to everything because he knows what the answer to everything is. The ego does not know what a real question is, although it asks an endless number. Yet you can learn this as you learn to question the value of the ego and thus establish your ability to evaluate its questions. When the ego tempts you to sickness, do not ask the Holy Spirit to heal the body, for this would merely be to accept the ego's belief that the body is the proper aim of healing. Ask rather that the Holy Spirit teach you the right perception of the body, for perception alone can be distorted. Only perception can be sick, because only perception can be wrong. Wrong perception is the wish that things be as they are not.
So this reference here, ask the Holy Spirit to teach you the right perception for the body, echoes our previous two sections, the body as a means of communication, the body as a means or end. So the body is recruited by the Holy Spirit as a means of communication, but ego would have us believe that there are other plans for the body, primarily as a source of attack and as a source of identity. And so we need to be on guard your mind for these false and misleading teachings. Um, let's go back to this first section where it refers to questions. The ego does not ask questions seeking truth. The ego constantly asks questions, but as a diversion maneuver, not to find out what's true. And it encourages practitioners of this program to learn to question the value of the ego's questions, to realize when you're being led down a dead end. And this is referred to in other places, and of course, spending hours or days or even years in the pursuit of something that doesn't matter. And so be aware to question the value of the ego and establish your ability to evaluate its questions. This is essential to not allowing the mind to get distracted. In yesterday's session, it talked about the ego writes endless prescriptions for calamities of the future. Oh, what would happen if the planet went outside of its orbit and it escaped the sun and we'd be all cold? What would happen then? It's concerned about needless questions about the future. That may be an extreme one that I shared there, but you get the idea. It wants you to preoccupy yourself with needless questions.
Only perception can be sick because only perception can be wrong. Wrong perception is the wish that things be as they are not. The reality of everything is totally harmless because total harmlessness is the condition of its reality. It is also the condition of your awareness of its reality. You do not have to seek reality. It will seek you and find you when you meet its conditions. Its conditions are part of what it is. And this part only is up to you. The rest is of itself. You need do so little because your little part is so powerful that it will bring the whole to you. Accept then your little part and let the whole be yours. So this is the paragraph that I'm choosing to comment on, and I have a comment and also then a question about it. But the first portion of this just really struck me. Only perception can be sick because only perception can be wrong. And what really struck me is, first of all, how powerful our perception really is. And that perception in the use of a sort of wrong function to see things as they are not. And then that second line, to wish that things be as they are not, that is the definition of wrong perception. That just really struck me, and I could apply that to my life and then also to some of my greatest pain is when I was in wrong perception and wishing that things were not as they are, and therefore not really connecting with reality. Um, and then also, Jonica, my question about this paragraph too is, I mean, you have it underlined, so I'm imagining that you're going to comment on this, but it will seek you and find you when you meet its conditions. And I'm just wondering, are the conditions turning to the Holy Spirit? Is that the condition?
It certainly involves turning to the Holy Spirit, Atisha, but there are more detailed explanations of the conditions within the course. And they're in a sequence or a progression. The first condition is to practice forgiveness, to view others as innocent and yourself as innocent. When we do that, we relinquish the false prerogative of judgment, and that allows inner peace to occur because we're no longer using our mind as a weapon by judging others and judging ourselves. So forgiveness, then peace. And the next one after that is divine love. And you can also consider this to be divine truth. It's all the attributes. So inner peace is the goal of this course because it positions you, that condition positions anyone to then receive the higher fruits of the Spirit, which are love and truth and knowledge. And so there's a whole, this came up before, there's a bigger story to this message about conditions that would take maybe 30 minutes to an hour. So we can't diverge on that, but these are the major um, phases of meeting the condition. And once we met the condition for love, then, as it says here, reality will seek you and find you when you have met its conditions. Love is the condition for reality. It could not be otherwise. Yeah. So reality is unchanging The conditions are part of what it is. And that is where our choice comes in. Are we willing to apply ourselves to the holy conditions necessary for forgiveness, for inner peace, for love, and thus make available reality to us? Is that helpful? Yeah. Okay. We'll go on.
Wholeness heals because it is of the mind. All forms of sickness, even unto death, are physical expressions of the fear of awakening. They are attempts to reinforce sleeping out of fear of waking. This is a pathetic way of trying not to see by rendering the faculties for seeing ineffectual. Rest in peace is a blessing for the living, not the dead, because rest comes from waking, not from sleeping. Sleep is withdrawing, waking is joining. Dreams are illusions of joining because they reflect the ego's distorted notions about what joining is. Yet the Holy Spirit too has use for sleep and can use dreams on behalf of waking if you will let him.
Mm-hmm. That last line, the Holy Spirit can use dreams on behalf of waking, is referred in the Course to the happy dream. It's not awakening. The happy dream is not yet a state of awakening to reality, but it is a letting go of the weaponization of the mind. It includes forgiveness and is accompanied by inner peace. And so the Holy Spirit always takes what you already are very well practiced at and reinterprets them towards the plan for atonement. It's very interesting to take note of the statement rest in peace, which has been, at least in Western culture, around for, I think, centuries of time, which we usually say after a person dies physically. Oh, may he rest in peace. And so that would be the message behind that is that the only way to enter into peace is for your body to die. This is an ego message. And what the Course corrects that perception. Remember, this is healing as corrected perception. Rest in peace is a blessing for the living, that we would all rest in peace. It's not a blessing for the dead, because rest comes from awakening, from understanding, from clarity, from vision. Whereas a type of withdrawal from reality, this does not necessarily imply physical sleep where you snooze for hours. This is refers to when the mind is asleep, it's withdrawing. And so we've all experienced both of those things. The Holy Spirit's goal is to reinterpret that entire progression so that we realize that peace is the goal of this world, the goal of this program.
How you wake is the sign of how you have used sleep. To whom did you give it? Under which teacher did you place it? Whenever you wake dispiritedly, it was not given to the Holy Spirit. Only when you awaken joyously have you utilized sleep according to his purpose. You can indeed be drugged by sleep if you have misused it on behalf of sickness. Sleep is no more a form of death than death is a form of unconsciousness. Complete unconsciousness is impossible. You can rest in peace only because you are awake.
So there you can see the connection. The condition of peace is to be awake. You can rest in peace only because you are awake. It's a condition. Without being awake, you cannot rest in peace. And these breadcrumbs, is that these hints are sprinkled throughout the Course in Miracles. There's a pattern to them. I'm alerting you to these patterns so that when you read it, you can see them for yourselves and thus understand the meaning of some of these ideas. Um, I can't help but think that this paragraph is referring to physical sleep, because there is instructions in the manual for teachers that before you lay down at night, that you trust the healing of your mind to the Holy Spirit, that you literally give permission to the Holy Spirit to heal your mind while you're unconscious. And then to complement that, when you wake up, to thank the Holy Spirit for healing your mind. We're not saying that you'll be aware of all because you were asleep. You're not saying you'll be aware of all the healing that occurred to your mind. But assume if we know that the Holy Spirit works continuously towards our healing. And so before you go to bed, place your mind, the healing of your mind, under the Holy Spirit as your teacher. And you'll be able to evidence that that was done would be when you awaken with a sense of satisfaction, even of joy, because you've utilized sleep in accordance with this purpose. Now, I've, at least in my own life, know that I forget a lot. Although the Course would lead you or imply that to do this every time, but as often as you can is of benefit. To trust your mind, because here's what we know is that in a busy day, we sometimes have 50,000 thoughts that are triggered or arise in our mind. Many of them are confusion, we don't know, or we're disoriented, questions, maybe judgments. And there's a tendency when all that happens not to pay attention, but to kind of shove them to the side and they go into the unconscious mind. And so the Holy Spirit is being given permission to take all the contents of your day, unresolved matters, and bring resolution to them, bring healing to them. And it really works.
Healing is release from the fear of waking and the substitution of the decision to wake. The decision to wake is the reflection of the will to love, since all healing involves replacing fear with love. The Holy Spirit cannot distinguish among degrees of error, for if he taught that one form of sickness is more serious than another, he would be teaching that one error can be more real than another. His function is to distinguish only between the false and the true, replacing the false with the true.
Mm-hmm. And the first principle in the Course is there's no order of difficulty in miracles. So the Holy Spirit does not teach that one error is more real or difficult than the other. She teaches that all errors are simply errors, and she doesn't index them or store them. She just notices, oh, that's not helpful. Um, So this is actually what we turn over to the Holy Spirit when we go to sleep, is all those misperceptions that we may have had throughout our day that we didn't really address or weren't even alert to clear the mind. So let's go to a topic mentioned here that is truly central to completing this program. And that the course refers to it as the decision to wake. And that decision is a reflection of choosing love. So let's see, in the previous paragraph, I said, whenever you awake, which teacher? Okay, sorry. So it's a decision of profound import, of which I would say in our era, we're not in a philosophical era where people consider the importance of these kind of decisions that tend to allow ourselves to be distracted by a multitude of other things. But the Course would say that every human being eventually comes around to this moment where they can decide that they want to wake up from the sleep of the ego or not. And if you decide not to wake up, the Course says you'll come around to that choice again. The Holy Spirit's not going to abandon us or go away. It's but she will continue to come back and present this decision to awake. And that decision is more profound than the words might convey, because that decision is a decision to unite with love, and not just personal love between you and one other person, but the universal love, the love of all creation. So it's a profound decision. We'll look at this again in other chapters.
The ego, which always wants to weaken the mind, tries to separate it from the body in an attempt to destroy it. Yet the ego actually believes that it is protecting it. This is because the ego believes that mind is dangerous and that to make mindless is to heal. But to make mindless is impossible, since it would mean to make nothing out of what God created. The ego despises weakness, even though it makes every effort to induce it. The ego wants only what it hates. To the ego, this is perfectly sensible. Believing in the power of attack, the ego wants attack.
Mm-hmm. So this principle that all ego always wants to weaken the mind is one that is well in evidence in society and at this time. This is the ego's strategy, is to divert belief and faith from the mind into the body and thus weaken the mind. And you will witness in our world how many people consume either substances or experiences, like 8 hours of video games to numb out the mind, and just not, and kind of just wrap oneself around these endless prescriptions that the ego writes. These are all, and there's so many more examples, because the ego literally is afraid of the mind, believes that it's dangerous, and wants to encourage you to become mindless, meaning to depreciate your mind, to take no value for it and just treat it as if it didn't matter. And so um, this is actually, it's sad that this should be so widely popular, but it's a very strong thread that runs throughout society. And this is one of the major things that this course, we're talking about correcting perception. This is essential to correcting perception, that we reestablish the role of the mind as central to your journey, to your progress, to your awareness of your identity. All the gifts that we've talked about become available to us as we heal our minds by corrected perception. Tisha?
Um, so I have battled with the way that the internet and social media and the hardware of the laptop and the smartphone um, are all pulling me down into this mindless vortex, to the degree where that's the recovery that I'm pursuing right now, is recovery from internet and tech addiction. And it is, there is this, obviously there is this spiritual this crossover that I know is happening, and I know it more now having been in this program, but um it's all in an effort for me to reclaim my mind and to reclaim my attention, because as David put in the chat, the mind is the most powerful force in the universe. And if I can focus my attention on universal love, on turning to my higher power, um, I have a chance. I have a chance at healing. But if I am constantly just reacting, and if I'm feeling any little bit of pain, and then I have this thing that's ubiquitous and all around that I can turn to, um, that's a problem. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. I'm glad you did it, Tisha, because this really is a major form that the illness takes in society. And so let's just use a few other words to describe it. The ego would have the mind be weak. And we read a moment ago about a state of sleeplessness or a state of unawareness, checked out, not attending to the condition of the mind, whereas the Holy Spirit attempts to reestablish intentionality. What is it that your higher mind is willing for you? And the workbook lessons are an outstanding method for this if you look at them through the lens of reestablishing purpose, intentionality. You'll see that a great many of them, if not in the title of the workbook lesson, certainly in the reading material that follows, a great many of them are about reestablishing the power of the mind and being intentional. I am determined to see, I'm determined to see things differently, to free the mind from this sleep that the ego has been promoting. And yes, to Atisha's point, there's all these technologies and forms, but even before there were technologies, we had alcohol and other distractions, mind-numbing. I'm talking about in excess. The Indians, the American Indians back in the early 1800s were succumbed to a lot of that, made them mind numbing. And so they've been around, but now the tools have gotten more prevalent and taken on a different form. But the key is what we read about a moment ago, the decision to awake. That is an assertion of our free will that I do not want to remain asleep. I choose to be awake.
The Bible enjoins you to be perfect, to heal all errors, to take no thought of the body as separate, and to accomplish all things in my name. This is not my name alone, for ours is a shared identification. The name of God's Son is one, and you are enjoined to do the works of love because we share this oneness. Our minds are whole because they are one. If you are sick, you are withdrawing from me, yet you cannot withdraw from me alone. You can only withdraw from yourself and me.
So here's a thought that is not commonly talked about in the world. You can only withdraw from yourself and me. And again, withdrawing is to separate and go into a dark dream of isolation, of preoccupation with ego messaging, to let the mind remain asleep and do nothing to for the healing of the mind. And so withdrawal, and it doesn't have to be on physical plane. I know that even sometimes in a conversation with someone, I'm telling on myself here, if I decide, not so much nowadays, but I certainly have been true in my life, if I decide I'm really not that interested in what the person has to say, they're going on and talking. So I wind up withdrawing. I'm still standing there, but I disengage and I start thinking about other things like where can I go next, or what else is there here. So withdrawal takes many forms. It's about our attention and our intention. So as a exercise, you might consider so that you become more aware of this pattern of describing what the experience of withdrawing from yourself is like. What does that consist of? What are the patterns that you do to reinforce that? I think Atisha was commenting that with internet and iPads and phones, that she's got a tool there that fosters withdrawing, and she's identified it, which is the first. Let me identify the problem so it can be healed. That's the first step towards healing, is recognizing the problem so it can be solved. And then we begin a process of weaning ourselves away from the habit and make room for a new habit.
You have surely begun to realize that this is a very practical course and one that means exactly what it says. I would not ask you to do things you cannot do, and it is impossible that I could do things you cannot do. Given this, and given this quite literally, nothing can prevent you from doing exactly what I ask, and everything argues for your doing it. I give you no limits because God lays none upon you. When you limit yourself, we are not of one mind. and that is sickness. Yet sickness is not of the body, but of the mind. All forms of sickness are signs that the mind is split and does not accept a unified purpose. The unification of purpose, then, is the Holy Spirit's only way of healing.
So that last line could be the slogan for this section. How does the Holy Spirit heal? By beckoning, calling to each of us to surrender our self appointed illusions and to adopt the purpose that the Holy Spirit sees in us. It begins with the body as a means of communication. It includes forgiveness. It includes attaining a state of inner peace. And as we said there, that this is the foundation for the condition for then understanding what reality is. So all of that is premised on a unified purpose, the one that the Holy Spirit is promoting. If you think about the logic here, to split from the Holy Spirit's unified purpose, by definition, is separating from the will of the creation that she's promoting. Now, how one does that becomes the question. So that's the goal, a unified purpose. And he elaborates on there earlier, and that is by joining your mind with the Christ mind, which in many ways, by studying this course, you are already doing that. This is not new. And so instead of withdrawing and limiting yourself, you're uniting with the one mind, and that brings one into a state of a unified purpose. This is a bit abstract because in an ego-laden society, we're not accustomed to even thinking about the idea of a unified purpose. But any individual can choose, you're free to choose yourself. What is your life about? What meanings do you choose to hold? And to unite them with the laws of healing that are taught in this program.
The unification of purpose, then, is the Holy Spirit's only way of healing. This is because it is the only level at which healing means anything. The reestablishing of meaning in a chaotic thought system is the way to heal it. Your task is only to meet the conditions for meaning, since meaning itself is of God. Yet your return to meaning is essential to His, because your meaning is part of His. Your healing, then, is part of His health, since it is part of His wholeness. He cannot lose this, but you cannot know it. Yet it is still His will for you, and His will must stand forever and in all things.
So, in many ways, this is a recipe for what the Course in Miracles is attempting to do. So, we established that the unification of purpose is the Holy Spirit's only way of healing, because only at the level of healing the mind does healing mean anything. Trying to heal a body has no lasting results because the body ultimately doesn't last. But healing the mind has lasting effects. And so, how is that done? The mind operates with a sense of meaning. our minds are meaning weight makers. And those meanings can be consistent with the Holy Spirit's guidance, or they can miscreate and go in a different direction. So the reestablishment of meaning in a chaotic thought system is the only way to heal it. And you don't need to be clever and come up with what are these meanings. It's not up to you. It's already embedded in the plan of atonement. Your task is only to meet the conditions for meaning, since meaning of itself is of God. So again, we come back to meeting the conditions here. Your task is merely to fulfill your part in choosing to be awake, choosing to let go of past beliefs that ego fostered and be willing to learn anew. And then your return to meaning becomes is inevitable. You're healing you by adopting a set of meanings which the Holy Spirit teaches. You're essentially aligning your mind with her plan. From the ego going separate ways, you're adopting a set of meanings, going your way. And again, the workbook lessons do this, whether you realized it or not. Um, let's see. Oh, and one of the attributes of the reestablishment of meaning is, and I'll contrast it, in the ego's thought system, it's a chaotic thought system. So the meanings are all over the place. They're going in all different directions. They conflict with one another and they make no sense. But in the Holy Spirit's plan, the meanings are united. They cannot be inconsistent. And then there's this line that I would draw your attention to. If a curriculum is planned by two teachers, each believing in diametrically opposed ideas, it cannot be integrated. It cannot unite around a common purpose. We often refer to this as your mind cannot serve two masters. Two teachers believing in diametrically opposed ideas result in inconsistency and ultimately mental confusion, even chaos. So that's as far as this section goes. Are there any comments that you'd like to share? This is an overview of the Holy Spirit's plan for healing through returning a new set of meanings and a new set of experiences, not like the ones fostered by the ego. So there's an undoing of what the ego planted in your consciousness in order to weaken your mind. It's a choosing on all of our parts to let go of those misleading ideas and make room then for receiving the gifts of spirit, which result in reestablishing meaning in our minds. This brings about consistency, which then a sense of purpose gets further when you're consistent. Your sense of purpose will be reinforced with your decisions. When it's inconsistent, a sense of purpose will be split and weakened. So this truly is the formula that we're using here in Course in Miracles. All right, well, that's as far as we're going to go in this reading. Thank you, Atisha, for reading and for sharing your interpretation there. Thank you all for your attention. That's the end of chapter 8. And we'll go on to chapter 9 next weekend and look forward to sharing those holy moments with you together. It's a very lofty purpose. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Atisha.
Thank you, Atisha. Thank you, Jonica.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
everyone.
Thanks
for reading, Atisha.
Sure thing. Thanks, everyone.
Happy Father's Day.
See you later. Jonica, oh, real quick, are you feeling okay?